advice would you give founders for building an AI? Like, you guys are a little bit further down the road than maybe some people listening to this podcast, like, or maybe some things you would do differently if you could go back a year or two and this is how we would do things differently.
Sam Altman said a few years back was like, if you're ever betting against our models not getting better, that's a bad bet.
Yeah.
So
Don't do that.
don't do that. I think outside of niche use cases, training a model therefore doesn't make a lot of sense, like doing custom training, because you fall behind so
Unless you're building,
quickly.
it's like, I guess the equivalent is like, oh, I'm going to build my own mobile operating system because I build mobile apps. That doesn't make any sense. Android's and iOS are just going to get better and better. I'm going to build
Right.
my own data center because I have really special use cases. Like, and that's not true for 99.9% of startups out there. And so, yeah, that's the same thing with foundational models. Like, don't build your own foundational model. It's just not worth it. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today, we're thrilled to have Erika Anderson, co-founder and chief customer officer at Storytel AI. That's a Team Ignite portfolio company. So we'll be talking our book today. It's a platform for turning unstructured conversations and data into strategic insights for teams. It's a pretty cool platform. Excited to talk about it. Erika is a storyteller at heart with essays published in the New York Times and Vanity Fair. Very cool. She brings a deeply human perspective to building technology, from creating internal frameworks like clean communication to leading GTM for AI-driven tools. Erika is on a mission to build beautiful and ethical software. Let's dive in. Thanks for coming.
My goodness, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for making this happen.
Well, it's always great to have our founders come on, and I would love to get your origin story, like kind of like the quick, 5-minute background of how you got to, found Storytel AI and kind of what your background is.
Yeah. I was running a founder community with Rodeo, my co-founder, and that was my first time really seeing the level to which we're like drowning in unstructured data as we're recording, Otter AI, which I love, but, and recording every Zoom call. And I just thought like, okay, what are we going to do with all of this? How do you get the value out of this? Or is there even a point to it? And then that led to really running a thought leadership content business for the founders in the community. So for tech startups, that whole issue of as you're building, you have to tell the world your story. Otherwise, you kind of don't exist, right? You can't just be a product. You also are a mouthpiece. And yet it was really hard, as I came to understand very well, for the founders to make time to be interviewed, to get that content out there. And so we moved into this direction. Initially, this was, before Storytel ever existed, using AI on those meeting recordings. Like, let's take what you're already doing, this high fidelity content, and get, permissioned versions of that out into the world. So you don't have time. Nobody has any time.
Right.
And those meetings are already happening. And so even though those initial versions only really got people like 10% of the way there with the AI alone, it was just like seeing that wave of generative AI come in early 22 and thinking, okay, we're at this level now and it's only going to get more powerful. So what's possible across the enterprise with unstructured data and getting the value out of basically this treasure trove that has been a junk heap, because before generative AI, you just couldn't extract the value from it.
Yeah. I mean, you had all this textual data sitting in Google Docs and Word and PowerPoint and maybe some meeting notes, and Fireflies came out, and Otter and all those others. Feels like in the last 5 years, Gong and Chorus and all these sales tools, and so you have all this data sitting there, and just how do you get the value from it?
Yeah.
Before large language models was a very hard task.
Completely. And the fact is, it's 80 to 90% of any company's data is unstructured because it's anything that's not in a data warehouse. So it's almost everything. So we've not been able to get the value from almost everything, which is totally nuts. So it's like, okay, there's so much innovation that can happen when you get the strategic insights, out of that treasure trove.
Yeah, and so maybe you could walk us through some of the use cases for some of the enterprises, and maybe later stage startups listening. They're like, oh, that's interesting. How do you extract insights? What does that even mean? And like maybe some examples of some of that value that's created when you're able to tap into the long tail of unstructured data.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot of research teams at Paramount. They're our biggest customer, and you're always trying to understand, why is a show performing the way it is, right? So there's that level of research, or they're doing a lot of research for their customers, so the folks buying ads. And so what are the latest trends, and how can their customers capitalize on those to increase their sales and buy their more ads with Paramount. And it is honestly wild to me how manual so much work is, of like, okay, I'm going to go into this platform and see what they have in terms of the, vendors, like research vendors that they pay for. Okay, now I'm going to go into another one and another one. It's like five different ones. And so like even the research itself with one person is siloed, but then they often don't know, like yet another team is doing that exact same research. And so I would say both for the supporting ad sales and for understanding viewership and trends and for developing strategy. So just sticking within that landscape for a moment, but we also have DevOps companies, ad tech companies, startups using our platform as well. But like, okay, so as linear TV, cable TV, like has its moves towards the sunset and subscription is not the only way, then looking at free ad supported television, so channels, and which there's like a lot of nostalgia content, also live content, but developing those strategies, because you come to those strategic insights when you're looking at what's happening in the global landscape, right? And then what do we have a business have to offer that, and what's the intersection of those two things. So it's like looking at 100 different documents, all different kinds of types, and pulling that together and pairing it with internal business insights to then make those decisions. Okay, these are the next 5 fast channels that we should launch.
I just think about like selfishly, like just questions being asked of me as like a product manager 10 years ago. You're
Mhm.
constantly getting Slack pings or Teams pings. I guess back then it was probably Slack, or maybe it was even Hip Chat from Atlassian. But you're getting all these pings internally. Hey, what about this? What about that? And if you had this like master database that Storytel is creating of all the unstructured data, all the transcripts of all the meetings that have occurred in the company, at least the ones that aren't confidential, I guess. I'm guessing you guys do
Mhm.
user-based controls and stuff like that.
Yes.
But then, like if you have a question, you don't have to go bother somebody. He's like, hey, who's doing research right now on back catalog, these ads that we can run across this like back catalog of Paramount? And then you could just find like, oh yeah, there's been these 3 meetings in the last 30 days,
Mhm.
and it's these key people, and here are the, here's the plan in place. And basically that's what Storytel does. It just brings to life all this unstructured data at your fingertips.
Yeah, absolutely. All that organizational knowledge. And that's lots of product managers, their platform. And one of them specifically said, I don't want to get pinged all day,
Yeah,
right? With those questions, that information is already
it lives
there.
somewhere in some meeting notes and some documentation and some PowerPoint that we created for the, like, oh, when's that thing rolling out? Oh my gosh. Like it's
Yeah,
out there. Just go find it. Like go search around.
completely. And it's just like scattered to the winds. And so, in fact, one of the success stories we've heard from one of our product manager users at a DevOps company is just actually querying all meetings he wasn't in. He has an amazing memory, but memory is fallible, but also you're not on every call. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you're on
And so,
vacation. Get me up to speed on the last 2 weeks of stuff for this project.
right,
Great.
completely.
Just scans all the notes, all the Jira tickets, like all this.
Everything. And there's so much knowledge in each of those. When you have great engineers who really document what they're doing, like you have a wealth of information at
Right.
your fingertips. Just most people don't know it's there and they don't use it, and somehow our like access is blocked when it usually shouldn't be. But yeah, he discovered a whole other product line based on a meeting he wasn't in. So there's, I think, just lots of discoveries. Like you don't know all the opportunities that you're missing by not benefiting from that like wealth of insights.
We'll get into a little bit of the product market, but I wanted to talk about your background as a writer and facilitator, how did that shape the founder journey and the product so far?
Yeah, I think one, just understanding the importance of storytelling and honestly being a little bit surprised how relevant it is to the corporate life and startup life. Honestly, working with anyone at all, having stakeholders, that every communication is essentially translation from to your audience from a different like role. And so that's been really interesting to see how vital that is and how poorly people tend to do it and how much context they're usually missing. But yeah, like data without narrative context is just noise. CEOs are always asking why, but tell me the why behind the number. You can't just deliver numbers. So that's part of it. And I think in terms of facilitation, that's largely been more internal in terms of coming up with this clean communication framework, which we use in our all hands. It guides how we give each other feedback. So every all hands, we're like either checking in with our feelings and needs, just doing like a 10-minute humane check-in of, hey, we're a globally distributed team, but this is what's alive for me in this moment. Doesn't mean that we have the time and space to solve it, but we can just recognize what's going on for
Yeah.
folks. And also if there is stuff related to the business, then we can see what changes we can make. But yeah, we're often getting to Zoom rooms and giving each other feedback too, so that we can all grow. And then, yeah, and that shows up in the product a bit.
Well, I wanted to talk about what the framework actually is. Maybe you could
Right.
define it for us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a series of frameworks. And I think for this, I will share my screen and we'll
Perfect.
just look at the one that we use the most. Okay. Okay. So yeah, are you seeing the clean
Mhm.
communication framework? Great. So this is it at a high level of just going, you can think of these levels as like going from the head to the heart. That level one is like that's where we get work done of, this is the timing of this deliverable, like let's do a status update. And then like what's driving what's happening here, because once we get into a place of like conflict or misunderstanding, um, what I've seen is folks are most comfortable in that logic level one, and you can just be in a loop. Like you never get anywhere. It goes on for hours or weeks or months or what have you. Like, wait, let's actually make this, let's be efficient here and let's head straight to the source. So like, okay, level two, that's where emotions are, and then what's really driving things and how can I be vulnerable about what's happening for me? So what's my unmet need? So this whole concept of approaching the world with this lens of needs. Every single thing we do is an attempt, not necessarily successful, to meet a need. And I'll see about going to the second page. So we've got feelings associated with met needs, with unmet needs, and then the actual needs themselves. So the whole hypothesis
Let me go back
here.
to the feelings really
Oh, yeah,
fast.
yeah.
Let's just give some examples. So I could be like grateful and appreciative if somebody's meeting my needs. And then, I see fear and fatigue. I'm beat and burnt out. There's this anger. These are kind of like negative emotions. So they're kind of like,
Yeah.
if my needs are being met, they're kind of positive. And if they're unmet, there's negative feelings there. I see. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, completely. And our engineers have referred to this as a lookup table. So it's like by category. But
Or engineering of them. Yeah.
yes, quite.
It's
I
funny.
appreciate it. But also it's even like, stepping out of positive and negative. Like they're all just feelings and they're all welcome. And this is, mapping them essentially. So like mapping it back. So, okay, so if I'm feeling really, I don't know, appreciative to be having this conversation with you, like, okay, what need is this meeting for me? So the whole idea is that these are universal needs. So they're all, or values or wants. So they're all some level of met and unmet at all times, and it's shifting. And so like, okay, I feel a met need for like lots of things under connection and meaning, I
So
think.
when you start your meetings, you guys do this. There's like a Mad Libs kind of format. Like I have
Mm.
unmet need in this way, and like you express the feeling, and is that how you're kind of checking in?
Well, okay, I love that you're talking about how we start our meetings because that we do differently, but we have a flow bot that just it brings a check-in question. So the whole idea is you don't spend more than 10% of the meeting. So again, like how do you do things that are humane and connect as humans and can just be part of the flow of the business because you can't stay there. You need
Yeah,
a
you can't just sit there and talk about your feelings for the entire meeting. But
totally.
it is kind of nice to check in with people and bring a little humanness to the Zoom call, as it were.
Yeah, completely. So how this looks in terms of how we use this specifically is on our all hands, we'll do a, 10 to 20 minute, we do a 90-minute all hands once a month, clean communication check-in. So it could be that we're going into breakout rooms with folks we work with regularly and taking turns giving and receiving feedback with each other. Or it could be we're all staying in the room and everyone's just writing down because not everyone wants to speak up or whatever, but we're all in Notion together. And it's like, okay, Brian, you're feeling this because you're needing that. Like, okay, we've all written in. It's like a quick kind of litmus test of where are we all in this moment and just some appreciation, any learnings from that. And then we go on to our, department update.
And I love it because it's sort of what you get when you go into the office. But if you're a remote first company, you almost have to bake it into the process of connecting
Yeah.
to create the human connection. Otherwise, you just kind of grind out Zoom calls or Teams calls all day long, and you don't really connect with people.
Yeah,
But
completely.
when you kind of when you force a little check-in, can
Mhm.
create a more empathy in the organization.
Yeah, I agree. And definitely as the leaders, like you have to model that. It can't be
Mhm.
fake. If things are tough, you need to find appropriate ways to express that.
That's amazing.
But at our last offsite, one of our engineers was tearing up. He's like, I'm not used to people caring about how I feel or who I am. I'm just here to get things done. I think engineers sometimes feel that way more
Yeah.
than anyone.
Right. Oh yeah, because yeah, more than anyone in the organization, they're kind of viewed. They're always like, you're always waiting for engineering, and everybody's like, when's this coming out? I'm like, can you
Yeah,
just go faster, please?
totally. I
Yeah.
know.
It's like your mechanic, right? Like, when's my car going to be ready? Okay, cool. I have a couple things. We could talk about it offline, but my wife's working on a feedback AI startup that you guys should
Oh,
definitely, that I think kind of gels well with what the culture you guys are creating. So it might be
yeah.
like a cool product to check out.
Yeah,
We'll talk
definitely.
about it offline, but I don't
Okay.
think she's ready to like really announce it to the world. So I kind of just did, but I was pretty vague. I think I'm
That's true.
sufficiently vague.
I agree.
And then selfishly, I'm about to write a book
Oh,
about, yeah, kind of all the adventures of Team Ignite. And we've done a couple hundred of almost 200 of these podcast episodes now. There's a lot of nuggets there to talk about how we ignite startups, how to create culture, like this conversation,
mm,
this check-in and this. And we should put that framework in the show notes if it's
oh yeah.
shareable.
Very shareable.
And then so I'm wondering how I might use Storytel for my use case, which is like scanning all the founder decks and founder transcripts and transcripts of the podcast and all the articles I've ever written. So I have this like just library of stuff,
Completely.
and I could just write a book from it, right?
Oh, 100%. And people are doing that. We've got coaches
Really?
doing that right now. Yeah, all their calls, all their
Sweet.
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very doable.
Awesome. We should definitely talk about that. Let's
Yeah.
get me the Team Ignite portfolio investor login or whatever. But
Like,
it sounds like there's like, who is the ideal customer for Storytel today? Like, what's your ICP? Like, what kind of market segment are you guys really going after?
yeah, what's funny is it's really anyone who's dealing with a lot of unstructured data, which is a lot of different roles. So, and I think what we see is it's folks who have to know that have to feel the pain of that. So,
Well, it's like
uh,
everyone, though, right? I mean, like,
it's totally everyone.
it creates a GTM problem for you because it's like, well, everyone has this problem.
Totally.
And you've named a lot of different people in lots of different roles using this, but it's
Yeah,
like it creates a GTM problem for you, right? Because you have to like target and message and come up with pricing package, all the 4 P's of marketing. Like, so how do you
yeah.
decide like who has the hair on fire problem? What's the first bowling pin in your crossing the chasm
Yeah, well,
strategy?
I think speaking of the chasm, I'm gonna share my screen again and show you who we look for.
Nobody's ever shared their screen twice on this podcast, so you've already crossed into uncharted territory. I've gotten one screen share. I've never gotten two. So this is
Yeah.
like already uncharted
There
territory for
there
us.
might even be 3, but yeah,
Oh,
we'll
wow. Okay.
see. Um, so this is how
I love
we
how structured you are with everything. It's like, here's my framework for thinking that.
Right. That's how we roll.
That's awesome.
Like nothing actually fits in a box, and yet you have to categorize the world to make sense of it. So this is what we see in terms of folks that we have interacted with, users, customers from the beginning with Storytel. And we just ask folks to self-identify where they are, and that like it's all okay. And if you're identifying, in any of these first 3, you're probably not the right person for us to be talking to. And so we really focus on the AI curious and AI enthusiast. And we think there's actually a category beyond of like AI evangelist as well, of like people
Yeah.
are
I'm
spreading
probably
it.
off on another whole, like, I'm off the chart here.
What would you say you're?
AI worshiper or something like that. Like something way off the chart. Like all a team Ignite is just basically me interacting with Chat GPT at this point. The whole thing.
Amazing. Yes, I love that. An alter to AI.
Yeah. Just I worship O3. O3 tells me what to do.
Oh, 3 is
Yeah,
incredible.
that's pretty amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
guessing you guys plug into all these models on the back end. Like you crawl like but maybe yeah, finish your story tell
Yes.
here on this chart.
Yeah, completely. But then we can look at the product,
Yeah.
and I can
Yeah,
show
yeah.
you because I actually used it to prep for our conversation as well. Um, so yeah, so one, I think it's focusing on the early adopters, and in the current version of our product. Where we're headed in the next version is that there'll be like an AI admin and an AI ambassador role. So these folks are the AI ambassadors, but then you have the person that, the wizard behind the curtain, working the controls and setting up automatic alerts from unstructured data. So it's like, okay, Brian, amazing. You worship at the altar of AI. Let's say you
My wife's
bring
like,
some,
shut up about ChatGPT already. Please just
right.
stop. Even my kids are like, stop, Dad. Just stop. I roll.
It's wild. It's just so wild, the whole like diffusion and adoption and where we're headed. And so many folks in the world are still in an enterprise, are still here.
Oh, it's something like 80% of the Fortune 500 aren't even using Gen AI yet.
That
I think
doesn't
some
surprise
crazy
me.
stat. Maybe it's 70%. I don't remember. But it was like a very high percentage. I was like, really? I mean, really?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I don't remember who said it, of like chat has been overhyped and agents are underhyped. And
Mm.
so as we move into version 3 of our platform, which is agentic, it doesn't, you don't have to get into the platform. You can still get value from it because the AI admin knows that you need alerts about these 5 different things, and they'll get sent to you where you
Well, you could
are.
hit the early majority to use the crossing the chasm reference
Exactly.
because they don't have to change how they interact with the systems that they're using. It just kind of works.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's how it has to happen. And it is funny though when sometimes folks who are like, oh, I'm AI avoidant and AI doesn't work. It's like, well, that's interesting because your colleagues are over here and like they're getting these proposals, signed at a 60% acceptance rate, because they're using our product. So it's really interesting seeing the level of certainty that folks have wrapped up with fear or avoidance, that there's just a real lack of awareness around. And it's like, okay, you're on your journey. We're going to focus on the people who already know they can get value and just want to have work-life balance and want to like feel like a superhero at work. And then it, yeah, does spread. But
You know what the crazy thing about humanity though is, and I think I'm seeing it with Team Ignite as well, and what I do in my workflows is AI makes us faster, and it makes us better, and we just do more.
right.
We just find a way to do more. Like I'm working like VCs get a bad rap, like oh you guys are like out on your boat and the Caribbean or whatever. But yeah, we're working. I work 7 days a week on Team Ignite, but it's like I find I'm working harder than I ever have, even though I have all these
Mm.
AI tools. So that's the paradox I think of productivity.
Yeah, yeah. I completely resonate with that, just using AI all day long. And so you're right that it's such a misconception about like making people lazy or dumb. Like our users are like, whoa, it's making me smarter every day. I
Oh,
know
definitely
more,
smarter.
right? Like,
Well, yeah, like I'll give you a for instance. I used to have
yeah.
all these MBA interns helping me do due diligence because we were a pretty high volume investor.
Mm,
You know, we're investing in 100 companies a year at this point, so a
wow.
ton. 50 per fund, per active fund that we have. And people are like, how do you do that? Well, I used to do it with like 7 interns. And, so we'd have all of these deals flying around and I have all these, like every intern's working 2 or 3 deals at once and we're investing like 2 a week. And now I can just dump everything in the chat GPT, O3 in particular, and just give it the prompt that I've built up now over the last 18 to 24 months. And it does that work at a higher level than the MBAs did.
Wow.
Like literally, it can crawl through all your data room and go through. But what's funny about this, and maybe I need to use Storytel, is I have to contort my workflows to ChatGPT, not
Mm,
the other way around, right? So it's trying to do the Google Drive integrations now. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and how you guys see that affecting you guys. But literally, what I have to do is I have to find the 10 most important files that will help me do due diligence, and then drag and drop that into ChatGPT,
yeah.
because it has a 10 file limit. And then it
Right.
doesn't do a good job of unzipping. Like if I download the data room and there's like 80 files in there, it's like there's too many files and the context window is way too big. And so it's almost like my workflow is basically the sorter for ChatGPT, the human sorter. Okay, this file looks important. That file looks
Right.
important, you know. And then it tells me like, oh yeah, like the incorporation docs look good, Oh, did you realize there's an undocumented loan here on the cap table? And it does a really good job of the files I give it of following the due diligence checklist and saying, hey, stuff is still missing. Ask the founder. And then I
Mm,
have to go back to the data room and go, well, actually, it's here. Let me like drag these 5 files in and check these 5 files now. And so that's kind of my due diligence workflow. And it's kind of messy, but it
yeah.
works and I'm way faster than I ever have been. But it's still a lot of, I call it the last 4-inch problem of AI.
Mm, hmm.
It's like the last 4 inches to the keyboard,
I like that.
is still there. It's like, the last mile problem,
Right,
right? Like,
totally.
yeah,
We're like, but it's just 4
it's this
inches.
last 4-inch problem of like my hands to the keyboard. I'm still just, clicking and dragging stuff for the AI. I'm just a really highly paid, file dragger now.
That's hilarious. It, yeah, makes me think of times I've kind of had those jobs working at the UN years ago. Um, But okay, so you don't have to drag those files around when you work with Storytel, right? Because you can do all your organizational knowledge. So yeah, we don't have the 10 file upload issue, and it's going to surface what's most relevant.
So it crawls through and creates an index of all the files.
Yeah, it's essentially, and I'll be honest, as the non-technical
Yeah.
co-founder
Yeah.
here, I can do like light touch on the surface, but essentially creating a knowledge graph and using RAG to understand, what
Where the files
concepts.
are, which ones you can pull in, which ones are important to the query at hand.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also something that we're moving towards is this concept first world from a asset first world, so that you've uploaded everything and then
Yeah, you're crawling a terabyte of my unstructured data or terabytes and
completely,
terabytes of it.
completely. And we've just been molded by living in an asset first world, and like the time people spend just looking for files. I've been on calls or like 20 minutes, like
Just me like in Google Drive looking for something.
totally.
It's ridiculous.
I know. Like that shouldn't ever happen. We shouldn't ever have to
Such a
do
waste
that.
of humanity, right?
How many hours of our lives have we spent looking for a
Searching
file?
through Google Drive and OneDrive and any other drives, SharePoint, like channels in Slack. Oh, that's a big one.
Oh my goodness.
That conversation where somebody asks you, this is one of my pet peeves when somebody like slacks you or like sends you a Teams message. They're like, hey, can you do this thing? I'm like,
Mm,
oh my God, dude. Like you just created this like extra task for me. Email me something. Sure, put it in my inbox.
mm.
You just message me something to do. Now I gotta go like either bookmark it or copy and paste it into my task manager, email it to myself. I have to put it on my backlog of stuff to do.
I
How dare
know.
you? How dare you message me something to do? I hate that. I tell everybody that comes to work at Team Ignite, do not message me things to do. I hate that.
Right. Yeah, good. We've got your README
But
being
what's funny is
written.
my fund admin does this. They run everything on Slack, the entire fund admin. And I'm constantly telling them, guys, do not Slack me things to do. Like,
Yeah.
email me things to do. Well, we like to use Slack so everybody can see in the channel what's going on with Team Ignite. I'm like, no, I don't care. Just email me things to do. I hate going through Slack. And anyway,
Fair. Well, I promise to never Slack you something to do. I don't think we have a shared Slack channel yet, but still,
yeah,
I'll just make that promise.
async task delegation.
Yeah, I think also you had mentioned, so we have an LLM router. So it based on the task and performance of each model, it chooses the model, for the job based on whatever you've prompted.
Interesting. So you got a model sitting in front of the models
Yes.
that
Yeah.
helps to,
Yeah.
and I think GPT is starting to do this a little bit too. It's like it keeps kicking me over to the 4.5 model for some reason. I'm like, no, the 4.0 is fine. And it goes, no, now it's O3. And I'm like, what? I didn't need O3 for this.
Right. So two things we do that are different is one, it's all the frontier models, right? So you're leaving the OpenAI universe, but also you can override it. So you can choose which model you want to work with as well.
And then how do you guys
Mhm.
price it? Is it a platform plus usage? Is there how much data you have stored? Like, what's that pricing look like?
Yeah, we are in a transition moment around pricing. So it's been seat based and, 100 per user per seat. But we're moving into a usage-based model, which will be, I think, more relevant for the agentic version of our product that we'll be releasing hopefully in July. So definitely this
Hmm,
summer. It's still under development. So but it is based on this whole thing that Drodio, my CEO and co-founder, who's really running growth, has developed around a whole point scoring all users. So as users are more valuable to us because they're at an enterprise, because they're at a Fortune 500, oh, even more valuable, then they have more access to the platform.
oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, we've got that in play. We just haven't set the controls, and yeah, it's just like let's make the product better all the time, always building out features and functionality,
Right.
as opposed to shutting things down or
Yeah.
limitations. Yeah.
How do you see the product evolving uh, beyond that over the next 12 to 24 months? Any areas are you kind of focused on shoring up the weaknesses, or if there are any weaknesses in the product that you want to talk about? Is it more like, yeah, there's this long list of features that people keep asking for,
Mm, hmm.
and you kind of gave a framework of like kind of moving down the how ready you are for AI and like creating less friction for the people who aren't sure.
Yeah, I think so. That's part of it. So I think, and it's funny. Sometimes it's hard to think in 24 months as an early stage startup, but definitely thinking in the
Yeah,
next.
1 to 2 years,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, but so agentic, right? So it's like you don't have to be in the platform to get value from the platform. So there's that level of expansion and really helping people evolve in their relationship to information. So like the whole, from asset to concept. Like honestly, we're just focused on capitalizing on the power of agents, and integrations will come with that. But what we have right now in development is, it's like Storytel is deciding what internal knowledge it needs to be searching and what web searches it needs to do in order to create an edible editable. So yes, I think yeah, I'll start from the top, I guess, with that. But so the power of agents and having as many tools as possible that it can use. So right now that's web search and your internal knowledge base. And then adding into that integration so there's no, manual file upload, but possibly even having a marketplace of tools that our agents could use. And something with our LLM router is, if your enterprise has its own LLM or has a particular open source model that you want to be using, then, be able to integrate that as well. So those are, I think, some initial, like, brushing, let's see, initial like paint coats on the wall and a lot more to develop from there. So I would say I'm probably seeing like 3 months into the future. And I I don't know. I think in some ways we're all on like pins and needles to see like we're getting massive, massive value from AI and how is that going to spread across the enterprise?
And you've talked a lot about human-centered AI, building AI with humanity in mind. How do you guys operationalize that? I mean, we talked about the check-in, but how do you
Mhm.
operationalize that inside the platform?
Yeah, what we've done some non-scalable things so far, which is like hosting workshops where we're looking at algorithmic bias and with experts in that space, or we brought in product designers to join us as we looked at our own UI UX and evaluated against a humane design framework. But I think the thing that I've been building in the last month with my favorite AI tool, Cursor, is an open source repo with things that you can just run on your code base. So I've all of like 2 rules right now in this humane linter, but, and for me with a non-technical background, it's like, okay, what's a linter? All right, like Grammarly for code, essentially. And we ran it on our code base of, okay, the only rules in there right now are like infinite scroll and can you delete an account easily on your own? How much like rigmarole do you have to go through? Because you shouldn't have any, but just adding all these deceptive patterns to that linter. And so I would say that like on that operational standpoint, probably it's early days, but we think of the LLM router as a humane way of interacting with AI that one, you don't somehow like buffering users from the complexity, that you don't have to be an expert at prompting whatever you write as your prompt, however simple or complex. We pointed at whatever data set you're looking at and automatically rewrite the prompt for you. And then you can choose our improved prompt. You can go with what you decided. I think so much of the way we build is very user obsessed. Drodio, this is his sixth startup. He has always been that way. And so we do a lot of user feedback, weekly demo calls with whoever of our core users wants to join and give feedback. And so I like, yeah, the whole thing when everyone had to be a prompt engineer for a hot second, it's just not feasible. And it's such a different way of interacting
Well,
with.
the funny thing about prompt engineering is you can actually have the AI do the prompt engineering now,
Right,
which is
right.
really breathtaking. So like, I'm like, oh, tell me how to tell you, or tell me how to ask you to do this thing. That's literally that's prompt engineering now.
Totally right. And we just take that step
You don't
out
even
of
have to be that smart anymore. It's like, I
right.
need thing go boom. Make thing go boom,
Right. I know.
It comes back with this PhD level response about
Totally. Totally. So that's what
so
our
funny.
product is doing without you asking it to. So we just have a toggle. As long as you have improved prompt
Mm.
toggle on, then thing go boom is
Thing go boom.
is
Any startup go
automatically
boom. We got a lot of good one-liners in this episode so far. Team Ignite. We make startups go boom
in a good way.
in a good way. That's so funny. Let's talk about lessons for founders and operators. You've worked with a lot of early stage startups
Mhm.
across different sectors. What GTM patterns or anti patterns do you see most often?
Let me see what I did.
Oh, you got a framework you're going to screen share on this?
I think, oh yeah, I just wanted to see what notes I took around this. Notes, aka using Storytel. So, right, I totally agree with what Storytel had to say here. So, biggest anti-pattern is building without understanding user workflows. So, we build in response to our users, and a lot of that is I'm actually building out what their workflows are. So I love Excalidraw, just a drawing tool, kind of like Figma, but to me, easier to use as a non-designer.
I haven't heard of this before. What is it? How do you spell that?
Excalidraw.
Excalidraw. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm still remembering like Envision, and
totally. I
I'm
use
from
that.
that era of product development.
I use that all the time. And oh, it's the worst when
And what was
like
that the mocking tool back then too? The wireframing tool.
I'm
I used to
not
use
sure.
that to create whole like clickable prototype apps. It was like this wireframing tool. I'm forgetting what it's called, but anyway.
Well, relics from the recent past, I
Oh
guess.
yeah,
But yeah, so just mapping out like, okay, so when a request comes in, how does it come in? Are you using a ticketing system? Almost nobody does. It's just like, I don't know, someone mumbles something in a meeting. Okay. And then what do you do with that request? What's that model of output? Like you have to understand the work that you do in order to do it well, usually.
yeah.
And understanding, what great looks like in terms of those deliverables, and then looking at each part of the process, say, okay, these are out of these 10 steps. These are like the 3 to 5 where I think Storytel could help you make this more effective and more efficient. But I think and it's a little bit of a like push and pull or tug of war of like, okay, I need to demo the product and what it can do, but I also need to understand what your goals are and how you accomplish those goals. Like what are the steps to getting there? Sometimes people are like, why why do you want to know this? It's so boring. But there's so much with just revolutionizing the way folks work.
How do you structure those feedback loops between users and product teams?
Our engineers join our weekly product demo calls. So we have live conversations and we have,
I mean, you don't have the guy that takes the requirements from the customer to the engineers. Remember that in the movie Office Space? What do you do here? I take the requirements from the customers and I give them to the engineers.
right. Yeah. Well, we're 13 people strong, so there's not.
A lot of flatness, yeah. Everybody's can be in everybody's business.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We're not spending our time writing requirements documents. That's also not
What
happening.
advice would you give founders for building an AI? Like you guys are a little bit further down the road than maybe some people listening to this podcast, like, or maybe some things you would do differently if you could go back a year or two and this is how we would do things differently.
Yeah, something Sam Altman said a few years back was like, if you're ever betting against our models not getting better, that's a bad bet.
Yeah.
So
Don't do that.
don't do that. I think outside of niche use cases, training a model therefore doesn't make a lot of sense, like doing custom training because
Yeah.
you fall behind so
Unless you build it,
quickly.
yeah, it's like I guess the equivalent is like, oh, I'm going to build my own mobile operating system because I build mobile apps. That doesn't make any sense. Android's gonna and iOS are just going to get better and better. I'm going to build
Right.
my own data center because I have really special use cases. Like, and that's not true for 99.9% of startups out there. And so, yeah, that's the same thing with foundational models. Like, don't build your own foundational model. It's just not worth it. Yeah, you can fine tune it maybe.
Mhm.
You can develop your own kind of RAG systems. I mean, yeah, fundamentally, that's what you guys are helping do is bridging the
Mhm.
model between the strength of these large language models, but all this data that it doesn't have access to. You guys are that
Yeah.
bridge.
Yeah, completely. And I think also being that buffer as well in terms of complexity. So that you can walk into the shallow end of the pool. Or with the agentic version, not even have to get into the product. I think it's it's interesting. We were with Paramount last week in New York and hosted a roundtable with folks outside of
That was
the
a
org.
movie studio that existed before the Gen Video stuff came out. They used to make stuff, make movies and shows. I'm joking. Didn't they lay off half their staff recently?
There have been that it's been wild to be expanding
Yeah.
there as layoffs are continuous. They just did a 3.5% cut,
Oh, that's not too bad.
but they had pretty substantial layoffs last summer.
This is the paradox right now, I think, in our economy is like we're at all-time low unemployment, but there's layoffs happening because I think I speeding up everything. It's like Jevons paradox on steroids,
Mhm, mhm.
where like is creating all this new opportunity. We can't reallocate people fast enough, so people are getting laid off and like I can't find a job, and they're like, meanwhile, there's like millions of job openings.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's like
know.
a lot of creative destruction happening.
Yeah, that's true. I think back to your question about advice, just don't overestimate how slow some folks are to change and
Mm,
enterprises to change, and that working with Gen AI is fundamentally different than any other kind of software where it's like you ask a question and you get the same answer every single time, and you can trust that answer, or you think you can, send. And so we're still in this transition period where people can just be like, well, I didn't get the answer I wanted on the first time, or I didn't understand what was happening, and so I'm done. And so again, so you have to find a way those folks get value without having to take however long it's going to take for them to get up to speed with AI. But you just like can't project onto them like, we're going in this direction and you're coming with, like,
Yeah.
according to them, they're not.
I think we might be the first generation, and I kind of put myself in millennial or early millennial, late Gen X. I'm born in 1980, so I just
Mhm.
turned 45, which is absolutely crazy. But we might be the first generation, like like people about our age and younger, that have always adapted with the times, right? Because
True.
the generations prior, they're just the Gen Xers and the late boomers. They're just like stuck almost. They just cannot. I just see them just barely able to use their iPhones. But like I think my generation, like we were analog and digital, and we've had to adapt every 5 years to new things coming out. And we don't
Yeah.
really run the Fortune 500 companies at the 45-year-olds. They're starting to, but not quite. We don't really run the government yet. You know, the boomers kind of still do, right?
I mean, I agree, and I'm going to push back. And also, I'm an elder millennial, so it's birthday in May, so also
Oh,
just turned 45.
oh wow, there you go. So it's exactly the same age.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I know.
called it. Yeah,
Yeah, days apart,
yeah.
probably. 25th.
June 23rd, so it was just Monday. So we're recording
Oh
on
my
June
goodness.
25th.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
About a month. So here's the interesting thing. So phones, yes, that is also what I see. A lot of our power users are in their 50s and 60s.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and
Well,
we
there's
tried
always exceptions, right? I mean, there's always exceptions to the
for
rule.
sure. For
There's lots of
sure.
people older than us that are way more tech savvy than I am, than we are,
Yeah,
right?
same.
But I think generally, I'm just,
Sure. In trend,
stereotyping a generation, which is a dangerous thing to do, right?
it is because here's the thing. We had a head of a studio. She's 40 and she's like, "Oh, I'm too old for AI." And I was like, I'm gonna push
What are you
back on
talking
that.
about?
I don't think so. And maybe even it can feel like, "Oh my God, there's so much happening, there's so much to learn." It's so easy. It is like dead easy to use, but there's still that chasm.
Yeah.
So I think just awareness of that, and then certain industries are hypersensitive about AI. So any like aspects of creative industries, film making and so forth.
You can almost make a case that it's going to teach a lot of self-efficacy,
Oh, completely.
because AI will enable you to solve your own problems without involving other people and relying on other people. I
All
mean,
the
you're
time.
basically you're channeling that towards AI now instead of other people. Instead of like going, "Where's this thing in the documents?" Like you could just go to Storytel and search it and find it. Just like solve your own problems, use AI. And I tell my
Completely.
kids this, like, "Why are you asking me this? Like, why don't you just go use ChatGPT?" "Oh, all right, Dad." There goes the eye roll.
Yeah, maybe they see that as your bestie or something. You know what? Really, it's interesting to experience that myself. Like, I think undoing whatever internalized misogyny or whatever, like, okay, I'm not great with machines or mechanical things. Take a photo, ask ChatGPT, how do I
That's it.
work this? What do I do?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm putting mud flaps on my car. Like, what should I be aware of
What's the next
here?
step here? Walk me through.
Yeah.
Okay, now I've done this. The screwy thing's not screwing in.
Totally. I know. It's great. It really took seeing my
You're using a
partners,
flathead on a Phillips first off,
right?
or
Totally.
Phillips on a flathead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but without judgment. But yeah, seeing my partner's 5-year-old use cursor, just talking to cursor to create a video game, I was
right.
like, uh-oh, okay, I gotta do this.
Yeah, and this stuff is getting an order of magnitude better every year, is what people don't
Yeah,
realize. Papers like situational awareness and
completely.
machines 11 grace. You go read those papers, and it'll just blow your mind. Like, and these are people that work in AI that are closest to the research, and they are out there town crying, ringing the pan with the spatula, town crier, like, hey,
Completely.
SGI is coming, super intelligence is coming, and it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I loved both of those
And it used to be
situational
the
awareness.
opposite. It
I know.
was the AI people that were like, "Oh, this is going to take a long time. This is going to take 50 years. It's going to be 2075 maybe before we have AGI." This was like, I remember like reading Singularity is Near 20 years ago. And I was like, Kurzweil's been pretty accurate for 25 years, so we should listen to him, and here's what's coming. And all the AI people are like, "No, this is going to take forever." And now all the
Right.
AI people are like, probably a year or two. Yeah,
I know
year or two.
it's such a paradigm shift. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I had to beg my co-founder to start an AI startup. He's like, he had just seen too many waves. He's like, it's not ready. And I'm like, no, 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 it's knocking at the door.
Yeah. There's so much opportunity out there. Let's
Yeah,
this is my favorite topic, by the way. I could talk about this for hours, but we should wrap it up with a
sure.
lightning round. You ready?
Yeah. Whoop, let's go.
What is a recent user insight that completely surprised you?
Getting the CEO of a entertainment company ask his team, his senior leadership team, how they're using AI. Answer was not using it. And the fact that he was so impressed with the insights that came from Storytel on their own data that he's like, okay, then I need you two to work together to bring this into our enterprise. So one, the not using it, and then two, that just a certain level of insight was enough to move the needle.
What's the hardest part of translating qualitative feedback into product direction?
Mm. My little joke is not using Storytel, but I think
That used to be somebody's job, by the way. You know, they'd
right,
read through all the qualitative feedback and summarize it for the product team. We called it product ops,
right, yep.
or like a UI UX user research team at Microsoft. That'd be like
Mm.
their whole job, like reading through surveys and dissecting it and summarizing.
Yeah,
And now I
lots
just
of
AI just do that.
completely.
Tell me what my users are thinking now, and tell me how that's trending over the last 6 months. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know it's wild. Going back to the one of the product managers I was referencing earlier, he's like, we took 3 months. All we did, all the product folks for 3 months at a DevOps company was look at our meeting notes to understand what everyone deployed to. And we only had 50% confidence in the answer. And with Storytel is 8 seconds.
Amazing.
So yeah, I think that's just like that's a total change.
Have an AI startup that you guys should collaborate with. I'll tell you offline, but basically they use AI to crawl code and create documentation.
Oh, awesome.
So
Yes.
that'd be a perfect partner for you guys.
Yeah, totally
Team
agree.
Ignite, hashtag Team Ignite. What's what's the biggest misconception startups have about AI UX?
I would say that users want to see the complexity, that they need to be master prompters or AI experts or something, and they just want the power without the complexity. So just make
Yeah.
it as easy
Yeah,
as
the UX
possible.
paradigm is progressive disclosure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
there we go.
the technical jargony term for what we're talking about.
Thank you.
You
I'm
kind of
learning.
yeah, I just want the answer. Okay, give me a little bit more details on the answer. Okay, give me all the details on how you thought about this and came up with this answer. I
Right.
think ChatGPT is doing a pretty good job of that with O3 now. And kind of like it'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of be like, now I'm doing this, and then the user does this, and sometimes they'll say really funny things like, "Oh, but like I don't think Brian will like that," like
That's great.
the AI is thinking about my needs.
Hey,
Brian's not going to like that. We better not tell him that. I'm like, oh boy. I had to give it this custom instruction, like be honest and truthful with me.
So is it still saying Brian wouldn't like that, or did it
No, not
drop that
anymore. Yeah.
behavior? Okay.
It'll just say funny things in its thought process. What's a book every startup storyteller should read?
The advantage, I I think so. What is it, Patrick Lencioni? But organizational health and cohesion, and I best business book I've ever read.
I've never heard of it. I have to check it out.
He's the five dysfunctions of a team
Oh, I've heard of
person,
that one. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yep, yep.
Well, that's where that comes from. Is from that book.
He's
Same author.
same author.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
A tech trend you think is overhyped?
Custom training LLMs.
Yeah, we talked about that. That
Yeah.
that definitely seems anachronistic now. A
hmm
non-obvious skill every CCO should master.
I think, and maybe this is my journey, but mastering the give get of like, hey, I'm going to do this training, and in order for you to show up and get value from it, these are the things you need to do. But like making sure that whoever you're onboarding has skin in the game and defining what that is.
What's the most beautiful piece, or what piece of writing would you share with people if you like, if you're like you can only share one piece?
So this is actually the hardest question that you've asked me. And so I'm just sticking with childhood here. Puck Everlasting. So it's won many, many awards, rightfully so.
Hmm.
Yeah, beautiful writing and super touching story that I just cry every time I read it.
I didn't ask this question, but like, as a writer or somebody who appreciates great writing, like, how do you feel about AI? Like
It's
writing stuff. Like,
totally, it's funny.
yeah,
I actually feel great about it because my IP is mine. I still feel like even if I'm interacting with part of the writing process is the thinking process. So there's a saying, good writing is good thinking. And so I have to wrestle with that on my own or with the page, and I enjoy that. I want that. But sometimes in if an assignment or if I'm just doing a blog for Storytel, it's like, okay, I've got this idea. I've gotten three-quarters of the way there. Give me feedback on where I am. Great. I agree with point number 3. Now rewrite it according to that. Okay, now I'm going to go in and edit. So ends up being an amazing partner. And it's really weird to feel so great about it. But I think the creative process basically got more interesting. And yet some parts of the process stay the same. And I hear that from, other folks. I love Hard Fork. I listen to it every week. And Kevin Roos writes about how he uses it in his process. And it sounds similar. It's not for the actual initiation of something.
That. Well, this has been a great conversation. I had a lot of fun. Well, thanks so much, Erika, for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This is super fun. I think to all future guests, it's not always clear exactly how much fun it is to talk to Brian. So it's apparently a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.